killed the prophet Yeshayahu, Isaiah? It's one of those questions we're going to deal with in our second part of this session. According to our sources, it is his grandson, King Menashe, which considering one of the most wicked kings in the Jewish history. So, in order to get to that topic, we are on page 49, Tractate Yevamot, and the subject is Ezehu Mamzer, which offspring of forbidden relations have the status of Mamzer, meaning illegitimate child. First view is Kol she'er basar שהוא בלא יבוא, לא יבוא דברי Rabbi Akiva. Any type of immediate family in a sense of next to king, meaning that it's a subject to the Torah prohibition that it should not engage, meaning can be someone who was raped by his father or the wife of his brother. So all those, it's called Chayavei Lavin, the Torah prohibited negative commandment. That's a result of that cohabitation is the illegitimate child. That's the view of Rabbi Akiva. The second view, Shimon HaTimni אומר, כל שחייבים עליו כרת בידי שמיים והלכה כדבריו. Not Chayavei Lavin, not the negative commandment, but something that is under the category of karet. Karet meaning anything that come out of the serious violation of Torah law, that it's under the category of that soul shall be cut off, quote unquote, in the Torah. So therefore, anything that comes out in that union, it's illegitimate child. And the Mishnah emphasized and said that Jewish law followed the Shimon HaTimni view. Third view, ורבי יהושע אומר, כל שחייבים עליו ביתת בית דין, meaning, if some have relations such as relation between person and his mother, relation between a person and a married woman, etc., that's in the next level, which is the violation that the Bet Din can go ahead and follow one of the four mitot Beit Din. So the result of that cohabitation, a baby that comes out, that's mamzerut. Try to bring a proof to that. Amar Rabbi Shimon ben Azai, מצאתי מגילת יוחסין בירושלים. I found a scroll recording people, lineages in Jerusalem. Meaning, it's not just some documentation. It says, וכתוב בה, איש פלוני ממזר מאשת אח, לקיים דברי רבי יהושע. Meaning, it's not just the record of that individual. Modern days, it's easy. In a sense, you have those sites that gives you the source of that person, but here it's written that fellow named so and so is illegitimate, meaning in those days they kept a record, but it's come out not just a record of a person, but it's come out of violation from cohabitation with a married woman, and therefore it's an emphasis לקיים דברי רבי יהושע, but the halacha is חייבי כריתות. So that's basically the halakha. Tosfot tells us, Tosfot wants to say that since you have a different level of violations, here is the idea of Eshet Ish, it's because a different form of punishment. Because in that sense, if she's divorced him but the husband is still alive, the child, according to that Tosfot, is still in the manner of mamzeirut, illegitimate. Now we go to the second part. If you read the end of this subject, it's Mishnah she'ena tzricha, but anyway, because it's written in the Torah. But anyway, that part, it's just Chazara al dinim, it's repetition of certain halachot that you see in the Torah. I remember in the Israeli Ministry of Religion, Misrad HaDatot, they used to have, I don't know if they still keep it, but they used to have רשימת ממזרים. They have a list of those who are illegitimate. Anyway, אשתו שמתה מותר באחותה. So even his, the wife's sister prohibited is part of the arayot, that applies solely on her lifetime, בחייה, but after she's no longer among the living, he can marry the sister of his wife, גרשה ומתה, מותר באחותה. If he divorced her, but later she's no longer among the living, the person can go ahead and marry her sister. נישאת לאחר ומתה, מותר באחותה. If after he divorced his wife, she married someone else and then she passed, meaning after the second marriage, then he allowed to have her sister, meaning Tosfot tells us later that the chidush, the beauty of that is to say that the sister cannot permit it to him, even she, meaning his ex, marry someone else, still her sister will be permitted to him only upon the passing of his ex, even she marries someone else. יבמתו שמתה מותר באחותה, the same as the wife's sister after passing. חלס לה ומתה מותר באחותה, it's the same as the אחות גרושה. נישאת לאחר ומתה מותר באחותה, meaning that the sister prohibited before the passing of the חלוצה, even she married to someone else. מהי טעמה? The Gemara asks, what is the Rabbi Akiva's reasoning? That he said that even חייבי לווין של שאר, even those involved with negative commandment, they have law of ממזרות. The Rabbi Akiva דכתיב, they said in Deuteronomy 23, לא ייקח איש את אשת אביו ולא יגנה קלף אביו, כנף שראה אביו לא יגלה. That's a euphemism, meaning that it speaks about women that the father have relation with. וסבר לה רבי יהודה דאמר, this is what we're going to study on page 97, באנוסת אביו הכתוב מדבר, דהביה לחייבי לוין, וסמיך לה לא יבוא ממזר בקהל השם. So the Rashash tells us that חייבי לוין we know because it's the kirva of the same as the Eshet Ach, the wife of the brother. But since this is come as part of the she'er, it starts with anusat aviv, that is considering kirva de she'er basar, the relation with a relative. Tosfot said, the previous pasuk said, lo yavov su adaka uchut shofcha bikal Hashem. So this is the example of people that cannot have children, so they cannot produce mamzerim. So since it's not connected to Dinei Mamzerut, so it's not considering hefsek. Alma mehanei have mamzer. From this list, it's considering mamzerut. Ule Rabbi Simai, de marbe sh'ar chayave lavin de lav dish er. So how about according to Rabbi Simai, who holds that Rabbi Akiva includes as a mamzer the offering of all the other forbidden relations, for which one is liable of violation of prohibition, even those who are not with his next to kin. That's based in Gemarrah in Ketubot 29, such as if someone have back his ex after she married someone else, or someone who married one of those lists that the Torah prohibited, netina, geramoni, etc. Excluded the widow of the Kohen Gadol, that the children are halalim but not mamzerim according to Rashi. ולרבי ישייבב דמרבה אפילו חייבי עשה. So meaning even he had a positive mitzvah, which is the since we have here in that list those who are haba michlal aseh, those mitzvot that involve with part of the positive commandment. So for example, the Torah said ador shlishi lo yavo b'kal Hashem. That's applied to Adomi, etc., Mitzri, So that's use the term of Isurei Lav. That's the third view within the view of Rabbi Akiva according to Rashi. So the source is Nafkalehu mi velo. They derive it from the verse that said, and he shall not uncover his father's cloth. That Deuteronomy 23. So since they use the word ve and is superfluous and serves to include additional cases. So mi lav, it's not only chayavei lavin de she'er, but even ese. V'shimon hatimni, that he hold that mamzer only from lav sheyesh bo karet. How he explained the attachment of the psukim. Savar la ki Rabbanan de Amrei, he hold the same as the sages that hold, not speaks about anusat aviv, but בשומרת יבב של אביו הכתוב מדבר דאב לחייבי כריתות, total different thing. That's part of the kritot, which is she is not his aunt, so it's eshet achi aviv. So even his achi aviv passed away, and he said v'smicha lo yavu mamzer alma mechayvei kritut have mamzer. So it means mamzer, it's someone who come from this union which is lav she'en bo karet. Rabbi Yoshua lichtov rachmana lo yegale. So according to Rabbi Yoshua, that he hold that the only mamzerut apply by the attachment of lo yegale knaf taviv. So the Hashem should write in that pasuk lo yegale. So they said he should not uncover his father's cloth. So why they said? So Rashi explained Kelomar, I explained it in my book. ורבי יהושע לכתוב רחמנה לא יגלה, כלומר היא בשומרת יבם של אביו משתיה או באנוסת אביו משתיה. So I try to explain it, it's a long one, I just give you the vignette of that. So Rashi have an issue that up to this point the Gemara explained the view of Rabbi Akiva, Rabbi Simai, Rabbi Shiva, Shimon Timni. So and now, since we go by the view of Rabbi Yoshua, and they use the term Rabbi Yoshua lichtov rachmana, it means that it come to ask the view of Rabbi Yoshua, but that question is also the other views. It's not only Rabbi Yoshua itself. So Rashi said, no, do not think that they're asking by Rabbi Yoshua, but the opposite way. They try to extrapolate, to explain his view. That if you go by these psukim, follow those Tanaim that speaks about Shomeret Yavam Shel Aviv or Anusat Aviv, so why the Torah said Lo Yegale Knaf Aviv separate, in a separate way. And the Tosfot also bring Lichtov Rachmana or Lo Yikach or Lo Yegale. So therefore I think that Rashi wants to come to La'apuke Mishitat Tosfot, to go in a different direction, but I elaborate in the book much more. So they said לא ייקח ולא יגלה למה לי, אלא לאו אחי כאמר, ולא ייקח ולא יגלה הווה ממזר, תפי לא הווה ממזר, which means beyond that point, which is the woman refer at his father's cloak, is not considering mamzer. Amar Abaye. So this is two examples that according to everyone, the baby, the child that come out of that union is not illegitimate. Amar Abaye, kol modim beba'al anida. Everyone agree that one who engages in a sexual relations with a menstruating woman. 49b ve'al hasota. Sota meaning that a married woman that was unfaithful to her husband. So we learn from the pasuk that speak about machzir grushato, one who returned back his ex, which is Deuteronomy 24. They said acharei asher hu tam'a. Hu tam'a. It's not only if his ex went ahead and married someone else that their original husband cannot have her back, but it also applies to unfaithful wife. We derive in that sense the same point. So it's called lav she'ein alav karet, she'ein avlad mamzer. So even that someone committed that sin by having relation with menstruating woman, it's part of the karet. The sota is lav, nida is karet, and sota is lav. So both Shimon HaTimni and Rabbi Akiva agreed that the child that come out of that union, it's not mamzer. That's what Rashi, Tosfot, and Rashba and Ritva have a lot to challenge that view. But anyway, נידה דעתפסה בה קידושין, שנאמר ותהי נידתה עליו, אפילו בשעת נידתה תפסה בה קידושין. That's fascinating thought. The Torah said in Leviticus 15 that even if a person committed the sin by having relation with menstruation woman, but still, since he used the language havaya, it's a language of betrothed, so that's utehi, meaning that they have tfisat kiddushin. That's Mishnah in Tractate Kiddushin, page 66. So taname da'atafse ba kiddushin, because even she is unfaithful, still the original kiddushin has have an effect. So you see, in the place, b'makom sheyesh tfisa lekule alma, in the place that everyone agree that he has tfisat kiddushin, so havlad lo mamzer, the child is legitimate. So Rashi said, Afil Rabbi Akiva in Bekol Chayavei Lav, in all these negative commandments, Kiddushim nifkaim. But if we come the relation of Chayavei Lavin, for example, Eshet Itchen is Zinta, so Kiddushin Rishonim lo nifkeu. It's still in effect. Tanya Nameach, Kol modim bal alidav al asota, ve'al shomeret yavam she'en avlad mamzer. So that's the same as Chayavei Lavin. Because the Yeshman de Amar, which is Rav, that he said even Chayavei Lavin, it's a hand Tfisat Kiddushin and the Vlad Mamzer. But according to Shmuel, it's not. A Vlad lo Mamzer. So that's match Shmuel. Ve'al shomeret yavam she'en Vlad Mamzer. Ve'abaye, Rashi basically said lo tihi havaya. Ve'abaye, the reason that Abaye did not mention shomeret yavam in part of that נשים, that the list, the child is legitimate, it's because shomeret yavam mesapka leikira v'kirit Shmuel. He wasn't sure which one, because the issue of tfisat kiddushin, they machloket, we're going to learn a little more on page 92. So for sure there is more to say about it, the Ritva and Tosfot. Amar Rabbi Shimon ben Azai. Now it's the second part of the Mishnah. Remember we talk about the scroll of lineage that he found in Yerushalayim. Tane, Shimon ben Azai אומר, מצאת מגילת יוחסין בירושלים, וכתוב האיש פלוני ממזר מאשת איש. So that's what we see in the Mishnah. וכתוב במשנת רבי אליעזר בן יעקב, קו ונקי. So in general, the idea of משנת רבי אליעזר קו ונקי, it's the idea that it's clean, it's accurate, and the halacha is decided according to his opinion. And I explain in my book on Rashi, קו מידה קטנה, כלומר במקומות מיעוטים הוא נזכר במשנה או בברייתא. So here there are a few views that in general is the idea that everything he said it's clear, but it's much more to say about it, because you see Rabbeinu Hananel, and also you see it in Rosh, Tractate Yevamot, page 84b, and you see it over there in the Maharsha, also said on Gittin, page 67, that if you look at the word Kav, no, help me, Kav in numerical value in Gematria is what? 102. Okay. So according to those sources, Kav venaki, that if you count the numbers of times that they mention Rabbi Eliezer ben Yaakov in a Shas, it's Kav, is 102 times. Venaki, which means all those Mishnayot and Braitot are very lucid and clear, and therefore since there are few in that sense, so v'chatuv ba, Menashe harag et Yeshaya, which is again, it's a hitting subject. In general, they said in the book of Kings, the second one, chapter 21, they speak about the king of Yehuda, Judea king by the name of Menashe, was a very wicked king. And he idol worshipping, he brought an idol to the temple, etc. His father was a righteous king, his name is Chizkiyahu. And the father of his mother was the prophet Yeshayahu. So over there it's written that he killed him. The Aruch LaNer explained that since it's all of that part of Megillat Yochasin, it's like archive of recorded, of diary, of history, that's the reason what it's written. So now since we talk about it, so he elaborate on that. Be ready, it's a painful story. Amar Rava, Meidan Dainei Vekatlei. Menashe tried to find an excuse to get rid of the religious grandfather. So he tried to do a pretext, like a fake reason. So he said that by the understanding of Torah, a false prophet, Nevi Sheker, deserve execution. אמר לי, משה רבך אמר, כי לא יראני אדם וחי. Moses said in the book of Exodus, chapter 33, that no human can see Hashem and survive. ואת אמרת, and you said in Isaiah chapter 6, ויראה את השם יושב על כיסא רם ונישא. And you claim that you see God on כיסא, on the throne. They use the word כיסא רם ונישא, upon a high and lofty throne. So you mean to say that you saw it, the Maharsha explained like straightforward. So you mean to say that you are highest prophet than Moses. The Maharsha explained. Because if you go by the Torah itself, you take for example the Maharsha said in Parashat Mishpatim, in the book of Exodus, that said, the Pasuk, ויראו את אלוקי ישראל, they saw the Lord of Israel, ותחת רגליו כמעשה לבנת הספיר. So the Maharsha said, you see here a source, like they said, we said it in Anim Zemirot, in a song at the end of Shabbat service, we said, Kesher Tfilin Her'a Le'anav, that Moses saw from the back of God. Versus here, the way that Isaiah described it, is like Va'er'eh, that I saw it, B'derech Yeshiva Milfanim, it's like I saw it in a sense of direct face. So it's kind of, he said, you mean to say something that contradicted what Moses said, that no human see Hashem and survive. That's a proof that you are Nevi Sheker, that you are false prophet.
Rabbi, didn't Daniel also describe Hashem in a way as sitting on a throne with a long white beard, and gave him sort of a body as a description?
Okay, so the Rambam tells us part of the 13th principle of faith, and we said it's also in Yigdal. Ein lo dmut haguf ve'eino guf. Hashem, by all means, in our monotheistic faith, is no any form of image. When you see those descriptions are basically anthropomorphic, which means they're using a human language to comprehend something that it's in that sense a total metaphoric description. It is not a description of physical manners, it's an attribute to something that in an anthropomorphism, which means in a human comprehension, will be able to understand that concept. So by all means, it's not any literal visual expression. Moshe Rabcha Amar, Mi ka'Hashem Elokeinu bechol korenu elav. They said in Deuteronomy 4, Ki mi goy gadol asher lo Elokim krovim elav. Who is a great nation that they have close to him as God? Meaning, Hashem is Hakol Kol Yaakov. Hashem heard our prayer. We believe in the power of our prayer. We believe that Hashem, God, listened to our prayer. Ve'at amart dirshu Hashem behimatzeo. And you said in Isaiah 55, which means sometimes God is there, sometimes God is not there. So it means that you are contradicting. You try to find a pretext, a reason to kill him. So you're contradicting what Moses said. Third view, third claim in that sense, Moshe Rabbach Amar, when he blessed the people, so in Exodus 23 he said, Et mispar yamecha amaleh. God promised that he filled up the years if you serve him properly, which means that there is a set up notion at the time of the birth that that's the year a person is going to live in this world. Ve'at amart, you said in the name of God to my father Chizkiyahu, ve'osafti al yamecha 15 shana. They said in the second book of Kings, chapter 20, that I'll add 15 years to your life. What's the story? So they said, that's based in Gemara in Tractate Brachot, page 10, when Chizkiyahu the king turned ill and Isaiah came to visit him. So he said to him in the prophecy, he's going to die. So Chizkiah asked him to pray that decree should be abrogated. So he said that Hashem accepted his prayer and is going to live another 15 years. So this, in that sense, contradicted what we said earlier. So because of these three apparent contradictions, for sure they are not, between the prophecy of Isaiah to the prophecy, the teaching of Moses, the wicked king Menashe tried to say that his grandfather Yeshayahu Hanavi, the prophet, deserved death because he's a false prophet. So Amar Yeshaya, Isaiah said in his heart, Yadana beid lo mekabel madaim alei, already knows that he's not going to accept what I have to say. It's a famous saying from Rabbi Yisrael Misalant. He said, if you have a kushiyah, if you have a question, you have a terutz, you have an answer. But if it's a terutz, you don't have another terutz. In other words, if you find excuses, so it's waste of time to try to reply. If I answer anything, ishavyei mezid, if he killed me now, anyway, so he considering a murderer intentional. So I rather be quiet and run away from him. So what did he do? So they said, use one of those name of God, which again, it's above the scope of this discussion, but Amar Shem, it's like they're saying in the Midrash that when Moses killed one of the Egyptian, when they fought, and one of them lifted up his hand, they said that he killed him b'shem meforash. He used the special formula of name of God. So Isaiah said that name, Ibala be'arza. So it means, so again, Michtav Meliyahu said that he was, the king could not see him. He was basically became invisible. It was part of that cedar tree. Atyua le'arza unsarua. So Menashe took that tree and cut it. Kimata lehadei poma nach nafshe. When that machine was about to cut, he passed away. Yeshaya. Mishum de Amar, and it's measure for measure, because Isaiah said, "Ubetoch am tmei sfatayim anochi yoshev." Because Isaiah said, and again, Hashem medakdek im tzadikim kechut ha'se'ara, because Hashem have a very high expectation from righteous people. So Isaiah in chapter 6, he said a negative statement about our people. He used the term, and I'm in the midst of people of unclean lips. So he was punished for referring to the Jewish people in a derogatory manner. So again, you may ask, so the punishment is not really matching the crime, what exactly involved here, etc., etc. The truth is, I wrote a large article in a book that was written in memory of my uncle, Rav Segal. Rav Segal was Rosh Yeshiva in Yerushalayim. Rabbi Avram Segal was a great Torah scholar. So years back I wrote an article explaining those statements. But basically you see both in Maharal and Rav Dessler and others explained there is a different concept here when you use these terms, because Mikol Makom Kashu Kraya Adadei, so the Gemara said Var'et Hashem כדתניא כל הנביאים הסתכלו באספקלריה שאינה מהירה, ומשה רבינו מסתכל באספקלריה מהירה. So in general, he said that all the other prophets, through an obscure looking glass, which means the prophecies were given as a metaphoric visions, but not a direct perception of the matter. And Moshe Rabbeinu, he gained a direct and accurate perception of the matter. So it's like הספקלריה מהירה, it's called in Ivrit מחיצת זכוכית. It's like you see a partition that made out of glass. And the others, that they say that it's like a mirror. Mirror, it's not הספקלריה מהירה, it's אינה מהירה. So it's, you see babuat panim, you see a reflection of face, but it's not really, not mamash. So that's the idea of acharav, not befanav. So I saw in a Sochotchov, it's the Gemorahs that they have special explanations there. So he brought very interesting something from Minchat Yitzchak. Minchat Yitzchak is one of the Rabbonim, Rabbi Weiss, may rest in peace, the Dayan, who you gave me askama, gave me approbation to my first book, almost 30 years ago. He was, in a sense, his door was always open for me. The great Rav Yitzchak Weiss. He was not only the Dayan, but he was the Av Bet Din of the Badatz. So I just tell you, not so much sounds like arrogant, but I remember when he wrote the Askama for my book. So his assistant said that Rav Wosner wrote about me that I'm Harifu Baki. Rav Wosner said that I'm very erudite. I don't think so, but that's what Rav Wosner said. So Rav Weiss said, no, add the word tuva. So he said, it's not only, if you read it in my Askama, he said, not only Harifu Baki tuva, which people say it's very rare for him to say. Anyway, so he asked a question, someone asked him a question, Ha'im mutar litpalel keneged erva. You are davening, and you see in the mirror a reflection of something that it's not modest, right? That it's like partially naked, etc. So can you daven if you don't see it directly? It's toward the reflection of the mirror. It can be for example, child that wasn't in diapers, or all kind of things that can happen in our lives with family. So he said the reason that it's prohibited, it's because the whole concept of tefillah involved with hirhur, with the intention and the thinking, and hirhur asur. So therefore, even the reflection of the mirror is prohibited. Anyway, the second reconciliation of the contradiction, Dirshu Hashem b'imatz'o, ha b'yachid, ha b'tzibur. This is individual, this is in public, which means that it's like I heard it several times from Rav Amnon Yitzchak. This is a fellow rabbi that have a lot of Bali Tshuva. So he said strongly, which is true, he said that Tfilat Rabim, when many people daven together, when you have a minyan, when you have many people that pray together, there's a different effect than individual. V'yachid eimat, and when you take the prayer from individual to reach the highest level, in a sense, in our language, in the easiest way. אמר רב נחמן, אמר רבא בר אבוה, אלו 10 ימים שבין ראש השנה ליום כיפור. בין, בחוכמת שלמה, in אורח חיים ש"ד said, that's the special days, 10 ימי תשובה, that is, in our language, the door of the divine providence open for compassion and mercy and acceptance of our act of remorse. And at Mispar Yamecha Amale, in that contradiction, that he said, if you fulfill the number of your days, it's a subject of dispute between the Tanaihi. The Tanya, at Mispar Yamecha Amale, fulfill the number of your days. Page 50, Elu Shnei Dorot. That's applied to the years of the generation, which means the years that was budget for a person, the time of his or her birth. Zacha mashlimim lo, lo zacha pochatim lo divrei Rabbi Akiva, which means a person cannot live more than the years that they budget him, right? But if zacha, if he fulfill, merited, so he completed the years that originated for him. So let's say an average person before his birth, they gave him 120 years. So they're not going to give him more than 120 years, but if he's merited, he will be able to complete those years. The sages says, Zacha mosifim lo, which is Amaleh, it's not completion, it's not Ashlama, it's in addition. Lo Zacha pochatim lo. אמרו לו לרבי עקיבא, הרי הוא אומר, והוספתי על ימיך 15 שנה, it's written that I add to your life 15 years, אמר להם משלו הוסיפו לו, which means from those years that already budgeted toward him, the 15 years, they give, but because of his sin, they reduce those years, Tosfot said. But then when he did teshuvah, so then they reverse the cutting of the years. There's as we said, Gemarrah in Brachot, page 10, speaks about it. They said that when Yeshayahu came to Chizkiah and he said that he is going to die because he's not married and he doesn't have children, Chizkiah said, look, I already foresee the prophecy that if that happened, I have a very bad children that will be wicked. So he said to him, Behaded the kav she'rachman alamali. You don't do cheshbonot, you don't do an account of what's going to happen in the future, in heaven. Within a parasha, Yitzchak and Rivka, they pray and they have Esav as well as Yaakov. So you don't do that, you just do what you have to do, and whatever happened. And the reality is, as we see, that wicked person, a grandson, killed his grandfather. Anyway, so he said, אמרו לו לרבי עקיבא, הרי הוא אומר, והוספתי על ימיך 15 שנה, אמר להם, משלו הוסיפו לו, תדע, שנביא עומד ומתנבא. It's like 200 years before Chizkiah. You see Yerovam ben Nebat, the first wicked king of the 10 tribes, that's the first book of Kings, chapter 13. הנה בן דולד לבית דוד יאשיהו שמו, ועדיין לא דולד מנשה, which is the grandfather of Yoshiyahu, at the time of the sickness of Chizkiah, which means when Chizkiah was sick, it was not a completion of the year that was decreed upon him to reduce his years, meaning then he was sick. And then when he made teshuvah, they complete those years, which according to Rashi, it's already budget. So some say that the idea is that Marsha said and others that it means that not to add more years to those years. Anyway, Rabbanan miktiv mechizkiah leveit David ktiv. According to the sages, the response to Rabbi Akiva proof, they said it's written that Josiah was to be born specifically from the descendants of Chizkiah. It's written that he will be born unto the house of David. Levei David ktiv. Im Chizkiah nolad, im ish achrina. He can be from Chizkiah or from a different person of the house of David. So you see from here that is no proof that that the lifespan can be deduced from that pasuk. Now, as we said it very earlier, that the end of the Mishnah, it's Mishnah she'ena tzricha. אשתו שמתה יבמתו שמתה וכולי. אמר רב יוסף כאן שנה רבי, which is the עורך המשנה רבי והנשיא, משנה שאינה tzricha. It's look like unnecessary, but the truth is the Ritva said that it's nothing not tzricha. It's like dil Torah ve'la'adira. It's good to repeat and bring all the details. The whole issue that is only bechayea, when she's no longer among the living, he can marry a sister. That's a good of reinforcement. For sure, the Tosfot Rosh and Tosfot have more to say. Hadran halach hacholets livimto.